Hey guys, it's me again. And this time I'm back with 49ers Plus podcast. We're going to talk the first half of the 2024 NFL season for the 49ers, do a little bit of grading, just kind of recap it. We give our kind of opinions on the first half of the season and then kind of look ahead to the schedule and what we could possibly end up looking like and if we can make it into the playoffs. But before we do all that, I just want to see how Al is doing.
Hey, Aaron, doing good, man. Coming on, I know it's Thursday, so coming 4 days after beating Dallas, but much needed, right? Get to 400, get to 500, 4-4, get to the bye, get some healthy players back, whether it's McCaffrey coming back against Tampa or the week after. Um, good not to stew on another loss, even though the Niners tried to give it away in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that game was a game where I actually calmed myself for the first time in a long time. I was very confident and they were gonna, beat the brakes off of Dallas. And then it happened again, and I reminded myself, oh wait, this is the 2024 Niners. So I don't know. This has been kind of what I thought this year might be, based on just losing another one in February and contracts and injuries and all that other stuff that has gone on in the first part of this season. So 4-4. This team is what their record is. They are a 500 team. They are no better. They are no worse. When you look at teams like the Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs, that one is where they're not. The record isn't what they like. What the record is of the Chiefs and what they actually are is not the same. But when it comes to the NFC, like the Lions are the team to beat. I don't think the Niners have a shot in hell to get the number one seed. So it's just a matter of now focus on that. Focus on the wild card and go from there.
Yeah, it's sad to say in a weird way, like people can make the argument that the Niners peak week one, like they might have looked the best against the Jets, right? Like that was a pretty complete win. No major special teams gaffes. I don't even remember if they turned the ball over or not. They controlled the Jets on the ground. Rodgers didn't do too much damage. I think they had that one touchdown on the offsides that Rodgers hit Lazard on. But then after that, they just kept playing mediocre football, losing to the Vikings and the Rams. Then you beat up on the Patriots. Who cares? You fall apart against the Cardinals. Then obviously you have Seattle, the Chiefs, and Dallas to get, back to 500. But they are, I think what's most disappointing about this season is, if someone wants to say the Super Bowl loss hangover is real, fine. If you want to say the Madden curse is real, fine. I guess when you double those up for one team going into 1 year, then the mystical deck is really stacked against you. But they are a 4-4 team, but man, they really should be 6-2, 5-3 at the worst. With all those injuries, I think everybody fan wise would say, you know what? They're missing so many players, especially now with Ayuk out. They missed Debo for a game, Jennings for a couple of games. If they were 6-2 or 5-3, I think people would say, wow, now look out, because a 6-2, 5-3 Niner team that wasn't healthy the first 8, that are going to get healthy the last 9. Let's see what they're going to do. But they've dug themselves a hole, even though the NFC West is crap, that they don't have a ton of room for error. Are they going to lose games in the second half? Sure. We'll talk about how many. But boy, they really could have distanced themselves already in the West by just winning those 2 NFC West games that they just blew inexplicably.
Yeah, they have really zero room for error in the second half of the season, because one thing, you have to beat the Rams, and you have to beat the Cardinals, and you have to beat the Hawks. That's a given. That's not an if and or but. It has to happen. They need to get those games. If they lose any of those games, they're probably not a playoff team. I hate to say it, because if you go based on record after that, then the Niners, what are they going to finish the season? A lot of people say 9-7. What is it? 9-8
or
10-7.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like a viable. That seems like the most predictable thing that, as far as record wise. But it's I don't know how to feel about this team, to be honest with you, bro. I don't have a ton of confidence going forward now. Reason that being is, like, they just find ways to let teams back into games. you listen to the press conference with Fred Warner, and he says all the right things, but it's the same stuff they've been saying for like 8 weeks.
Yeah.
We got to learn from our mistakes. We got to play full 4 quarters. We got to execute. Everything we need is in the building. It's like, okay, you have all the answers, but yet 8 weeks into the season, you still haven't found a way to execute and get that stuff taken care of. So I don't know. I don't know how to feel. If you put a gun to my head and ask me if I think the Niners are going to make the playoffs this year, I'd say no. I just don't know.
If they were in any other division, I would feel that way. I mean, let's see what the Rams are going to be coming out of the bye week, right? They have to go to Seattle, so chances are good that one of those two teams loses. I mean, there could be a tie, of course. But I think what's most concerning is that the Niners haven't played a full 4 quarters. They haven't looked good from whistle to whistle in any game. In your 4 wins, you beat the Jets week 1, which they were a mess with Saleh and Rodgers and Hackett and not handing the ball off, everything. You beat New England, great, but they have 0 offense, and Jacoby Brissett is one of those 10 or 12 quarterbacks that you could rush 4, drop 7 all game, and he's not going to hurt you, nor are any of those weapons going to hurt you. But they did have the fumble to start the second half on the kickoff return that let New England back in. Same thing, Geno Smith. They got Geno in Seattle's number, at least, for the past couple of years, and hopefully it continues 3 weeks from now in Santa Clara. But that game was a 5 or 6 point game with under 2 minutes to go. And Dallas, they were up. When they got up 20-10, I texted my buddy saying, they're up 10. This is not good. Dallas has San Fran right where they want him, right? But then they get up 27-10. You feel like, all right, 3 scores now going into the 4th quarter. This is a different calculus. This is different math. This isn't the 10.2 score thing. It's an extra possession Dallas needed, and they got it. They got it to 30-24. They got the 3 and out. They got the ball back and then went for it out and courtesy of was it Turpin down the left sideline who wound up dropping a really nice pass, a bomb from Prescott, but I don't think he would have gotten his second foot down anyway. So when they are beating teams, they're beating teams not really convincingly, but against offenses with a hand tied behind their back. And then the other teams that they beat, they could have closed the door on them either on O or on D earlier in the game, earlier in the 4th, and they don't. So then you have 2 losses, 2 of their 4 losses are inexplicable. So it's hard to feel good about anything other than saying Minnesota, you're better, and Kansas City, you're better. That's the only thing you could say with any sort of definitiveness, that the way these 8 games played out, that's the only thing I'm really sure of.
100%. JC Montana, he is from the Houston Niner Empire. Hey man, welcome. Everybody's welcome.
And Texans fans, I just saw, I didn't watch TV, but they Texans dodged a bullet on a touchdown. One of the Jets, I think Malachi Corley, decided to drop the ball before he got into the end zone.
No way.
Ridiculous. Yeah. And only the Jets and only. So if you're a Houston fan, actually probably a Niner fan there, but for your Texan brethren, you guys dodged a bullet there because the Jets are morons.
You want to talk about a team that's a bigger mess than the Niners? Just go to New York and look at the Jets and the Giants. They're just as bad.
And the whole area, the Yankees, like it's
coming from a guy that used to be a hardcore Yankees fan.
I'll tell you what, the Liberty WNBA championship feels like a lifetime ago, huh?
Right. See, this is what I mean. He says, great point. The captains on this team doing a lot of talking, but they look foolish with the record we have. Yeah, Bosa and Warner are 2 guys that, they have a right to talk because they've played, if you want to name about 3 or 4 players that have played good all season from whistle to whistle, from the beginning of the season to the bye week, it would probably be Warner, Bosa, and a smattering of others on offense, maybe Kittle. Everybody else has been super inconsistent. So when he says that there's a lot of talking, I don't like when I hear a press conference week in and week out and it's the same stuff. And he talks about, well, we got to learn to not get up for one game and not be down for the next game. I'm like, how are we even having this problem at this point in the season? Like, to me, I don't know, man. To me, this team it's going to be an uphill battle all season for them to do anything. So if they actually won the Super Bowl, which I don't think they will, but if they did, it would probably be the most gratifying Super Bowl because nobody would have saw it coming. Last year everyone's like, "Oh wow, they got the number 1 seed, ooh ah, whatever." And we tried to throw that away last year by playing horrible in both the division and the conference championship game. And so now, in a way, this is what I tell myself to fool myself. I say the Niners are the underdog because now, if you have the number 1 seed, you're expected to get to the Super Bowl or at least to the conference championship. Niners have nothing to lose because they've been bad all season. If things continue to be the way they are and they've been hot and cold, in a way, I kind of like that because they're not expected to do anything, but they have enough talent to go into someone else's building and beat them, like on both sides of the ball. So that's kind of where I'm going mentally. That's what I'm. These are the things that I've been telling myself. Like, we want to be the underdog this year. Let's be the team that nobody expects, and maybe we'll turn into like the New York Giants or the '88 49ers that played bad all season and then had a great playoff run. Beating the Vikings and the Bears, and then beating the Bengals in the Super Bowl. But that's just me.
And listen, that's the mindset I had. That's why the Chiefs loss didn't bother me, because they can't beat them ordinarily. All between the illnesses, the absences of Jennings, the injury of Ayuk, they had no chance. Even though they teased us, they're not going to be favorites every other game along the way. They're going to be an underdog at Green Bay. They're going to be an underdog at Buffalo. Who knows how that Lion game is going to go? Second to last week of the season, they might be an underdog at Miami, assuming Tua stays healthy. Even though they dropped their first game with him back against Arizona of all teams. Thanks a lot, Miami. But yeah, it would be a gratifying run even to an NFC Championship game or the divisional round. I mean, getting to the divisional round, I don't think is any huge shakes, because if they win the West, even if they are the 3 or 4 seed, they may host whoever the second or third place team is in the North. Like if the Lions win it, they may host the Vikings or the Packers. Good teams, do they immensely scare you? Yeah, Vikings beat them, but this isn't in Minnesota. Maybe home field advantage could have a little something to do with it. Or if it's Philadelphia or Washington, these aren't scary teams to come to Santa Clara, and they're perfect in the playoffs since Levi's was built. It doesn't feel like a stadium like a Lambeau or Kansas City or Seattle or the Superdome, like some place that has a definitive home field advantage, loud mystique to it. Even going up to Buffalo, saying like the 90s, like they were unbeatable. But they're doing something right in the postseason. Just a matter of can they string enough wins together, and it might only need to be 5 to get there. And again, it's 9-8. I'm not going to apologize to anybody because it gives us one more week of Niner football to watch, maybe more to talk about.
Right, we've been really good the last couple of years. If we go 9-8 this year, I'm not really worried about it.
Yeah,
and to be honest with you, oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say then your mentality comes into play. If they're the 3 or 4, they'll probably be the 4 seed, right? What are we expecting them to do? I mean, are we going to be pissed if they don't get to the championship game or Super Bowl? Of course. Like you never know, but it's better than being 16-1 and getting bounced in the second round.
Or you could be the undefeated Patriots who didn't get the job done.
Exactly.
This first half of the season has had a ton of injuries. We talked about a lot of them, or no, we didn't talk about a lot of them. We just kind of mentioned it, but the return of possibly Juwan Jennings, Christian McCaffrey, and maybe down the line Dre Greenlaw is huge. That's why, man, they just got to figure out a way to win some of these games, man, because those are some pretty good reserves. Like the reserves coming back, like to just step in at the most crucial part of the season. The one that I'm worried about is Greenlaw, because it was in February that he blew his Achilles.
Yep.
I thought that's like a year and a half, a 2-year kind of recovery. Like the first year, you're not the same. It's like year 3, maybe, that you start to feel kind of normal again. I remember, I know he's a lot older though, but like the stuff that happened with Richard Sherman, he had issues with the staple that they put in there, and it was causing irritation and stuff. So
his, the lateral agility and the quickness, it's going to be an issue for him. And assuming there's no complications with the surgery, an Achilles and an ACL run around the same time frame, and people heal differently. And of course, the surgeon you have who does something a little bit different that maybe shaves off a couple weeks in terms of like rehab, your physical therapists and all that good stuff. he's going to be not nearly 100% whenever he comes back. And let's just say he comes back December 1st, or, for those last, say, 5 games in December, because the first they're at the Bills on December 1st. I just have the schedule up. I'm looking at that. I don't, Greenlaw at 80% is going to be better than Devondre Campbell. Although Campbell actually had a pretty good game against Dallas. He wasn't the reason. He wasn't a reason why they lost. He wasn't picked on tremendously in the passing game. He didn't stand out as a, oh crap, they're going to throw at Devondre Campbell type of thing. But yes, and they are reinforcements. And I heard Shanahan say it, either I listened to an interview or read the transcript of, it sounds like, and famous last words, that when McCaffrey is ready, is able to play in a game, that they're going to ease him back, which I wondered about. Now, Mason's banged up. Hopefully his shoulder's okay in a week and a half for Tampa Bay. If McCaffrey is given the green light to go. But yeah, it can't be game 1 where you give him 20 carries.
Yeah, business as usual.
You can't. But Shanahan, I jokingly said to my buddy the day before the Cowboy game, Debo coming off pneumonia, I said, watch, Shanahan will start him off at running back.
Yep.
And he did. And he wasn't 100%. I guess the mentality is, if you're good to go, you're good to go. But with who you were missing at receiver with Ayuk and Jennings, you would think someone coming off pneumonia, maybe you keep all his oxygen, his cardio, his energy geared only towards wide receiver. No, first play handoff.
Shanahan doesn't learn, man. That's the one thing about him. If we're going to give grades, I want to give a grade to the coaching staff this year, and it's not going to be fair. It's not going to be favorable. So, and if you're here and you like to hear all, sunshine and rainbows and butterflies and candy canes and stuff about everything Niners, this isn't the place.
Not here, not today.
For the few of you that actually watch me on a consistent basis, that I'm pretty negative. I'm just a realist. People said that about me. My nephew is very similar to me when it comes to the Niners. He's always waiting for the other shoe to drop because he's never seen the Super Bowl in his lifetime, and he's been disappointed.
That's hard.
More than once, three times. My nephew was born in the summer of 1995. Okay, so about 5 months after we won in the 94 season. I've experienced it over the course of the first 15 years of my life. They won 5 of them, right? He's never seen it. All he's seen is losses. So you become a little numb, disconnected, negative, or whatever. And it's I wish we could win it just for him, not for myself, just for the young cats that are new fans. So, but you're right. I don't understand what it is with Kyle. We get players back and it's okay. Me and Roger were kidding the other day. It might've been Roger or Bashar. I said, he's got to make up for all the carries lost. So the first game he's going to get 400 carries, 400 carries, 10 receiving touchdowns. Kyle's got to make up for all the time that he hasn't abused this guy. You hope he learns.
I think you'd like to think at least with the McCaffrey injury coming back, there's less wear and tear on the entire body, right? He's not taking hits. But I always think about what is he doing cardio wise to get into shape? If they want him to stay off his legs, his calves, his Achilles, is he running? Is he cycling? Is he swimming? I'm curious about what type of football shape he's going to be into. But if Shanahan's, and if McCaffrey's no, I'm good, I'll stay in. They got to pull him out. Guerendo, last game was the game that you can get excited about Guerendo.
Exactly. This last game was the first game where I was okay, now I'm starting to see he's not just running into the hole and getting tackled. You know what I mean? He's not as shifty as Mason or even McCaffrey. He's kind of a straight ahead guy. But I'll tell you, that kid gets a crack. Wow. He's not as fast as Mostert. He's a tick slower.
Right.
He's also way bigger too. So that kind of comes into effect too. He's 6'1", 220 some odd pounds. He's a big boy for a running back.
No, and he had 2 nice runs up the middle. He had 1 sweep that got called back on a hold by Kittle, but he went, I think 14 for 85 and a touch. And there was no controversy. He absolutely voluntarily went down at the end of the game. The Seattle game,
He's a good kid.
Seattle game, I'm still not sure. I'm still not sure.
Kyle said he should have scored.
Yeah. The Dallas game. And listen, and if they had scored, mentally, do people feel better about a 37-24 victory versus 30? I mean, it
Looks
wouldn't
better on the
matter.
box
Plus,
score.
the line was 4 or 5. Vegas wouldn't have mattered either way, plus the over, all that good stuff. But that's a game where you can get excited about Grendel because he showed more than just running straight for 76 yards. Plus, Mason getting hurt. So there's a viable additional running back option as they ease McCaffrey into it. But the formula against Dallas was really simple, and it changed in the second. It changed at halftime, and I hope the formula changes in the second half of the season, and we see less bombs away Brock and more short to intermediate efficient Brock. And I'm sure that's going to happen naturally with McCaffrey being back, check downs, those option routes, like those within 10-yard throws that he's going to beat a linebacker on. But they are, and I think the dirtiest word anybody could use for Brock, and it's a compliment, it's a backhanded one, is efficient. I would rather be efficient than try to be explosive. I would rather score on a 12-play drive than an 8-play drive if it means you're not putting the ball in harm's way or throwing deep and overlooking check downs that are right in front of you that maybe forces you to punt or stay into a second and long. I think the shorter, efficient passing game, that is hopefully something that Kyle dials into a little bit more, and encouraging Brock to run. It's not always going to be 7 or 8 for 56, but like just even doing the math, if he averaged 30 rushing yards a game, which is still probably high, right? But let's just for shits and giggles, that's 500 yards on the year. Did anybody see Brock running for 500? Like that's a lot of just
he's
staying ahead of the chain stuff that is a plus that someone like, as good as CJ Stroud is, zero mobility. Like, and Jordan Love too. Like just another thing for defenses to think about. I think Kyle should be encouraging.
Jordan Love likes to fall backwards when he throws. You ever notice that?
Oh, absolutely. But listen, first read, second read, third read, not their go. If they can limit or eliminate the running around behind the line of scrimmage, the whole swirling around the drain thing, and he's just decisive and goes.
Yeah. The whole whirling dervish thing gets on my nerves after a while. You could tell even Kyle was getting pissed off because that one, he almost threw an interception.
Yes.
You're holding on. Listen, bro. This is the thing about Brock. Brock is a small guy. He doesn't have a huge hose, as they would say. Arm, guys, not hose. But he's sneaky athletic.
Mm-hmm.
And his stature being what it is, it's actually a benefit to him.
Yes.
To be quick and little instead of being big and kind of, everyone was talking about when freaking Trey Lance came out of college. Oh, he can run, he can move. Ooh. He was slow.
He was slow.
Very slow and indecisive. Brock is like, oh, here's a crack. Boom, gone. But I also think Brock has established himself as a quarterback to where he's comfortable making those. Whereas someone like Trey Lance was like, I got to stay in the pocket. You know what I mean? I have to make a throw from the pocket because that's what they're judging me on. And instead of being like where you're at now with Brock, where it's like he's comfortable being the starting quarterback and he kind of runs the offense the way mostly the way that Kyle wants him to run it. But
it was wild. I had a stat. I'm going to get close to it, so don't quote me on it. But the first half of the Cowboy game, Brock was at like 9.5 yards per attempt. And I'm not sure if that was completion or just attempt in general. 6 points, right? They couldn't get in the end zone, stalled out. Second half, he was under 4 yards an attempt, but they just kept moving the ball. And the running game had something to do with that too. I get it, but I've said here and on my podcast as well, I applaud his confidence, his willingness to push the ball downfield. Kyle drawing up plays. It's not like Kyle, even with Jimmy, it's not like he was afraid of Jimmy throwing the deep ball. Like you can't just run 15, 20 yards or shorter every play. You have to send someone deep. You have to send someone on a post. You have to keep the defense honest. So Brock should always be taking the shots when they're there and they're advantageous. Was it the first drive where Debo lined up in the backfield after he got his handoff and then ran a wheel route, beat the linebacker, and then Brock hit him for like a 40, 45-yard gain down that right sideline? So when it's there, that's awesome. But it's so interesting how the philosophy of the Niners offense in the first half of the season was more so than other years, and it bears out on the whole air yards per attempt, where Brock's leading the league inexplicably, or people wouldn't have bet on that, how they're doing it without their full offense. You would think when you're missing a receiver, 2 receivers, McCaffrey, that you would maybe be more conservative.
No.
But they're more aggressive with less pieces. I don't understand how that computes. And they were less aggressive in the second half, and they blew the doors open against Dallas.
I don't remember them being this aggressive with the pass game in the Montana era or the Young era. They ran the ball pretty consistently. You know, it was like run sets up the pass. Well, sometimes it depends. In that era, sometimes the pass would set up the run, but like the Niners weren't chucking and ducking. It was like 5 yards, 6 yards, 8-yard comeback. You know what I mean? Like, I actually prefer, people call it the dink and dunk, West Coast. What do they call? What they used to call the Niners? They weren't a physical team. They were finesse. I like finesse football. Finesse football, in a way, is very much, stick your dick in the dirt and hit somebody kind of football. And I like that kind of football sometimes with the Niners. I like when they're physical and they run the ball and Trent Williams is getting into open space and taking out, DBs and stuff like that. That's their offense at its peak.
Yeah.
I don't feel comfortable with Brock going back to throw all the time. 1, he's already been injured. 2, I don't trust that offensive line. And 3, we really don't have a burner on this team on a consistent basis to where we could just chuck it and the guy's going to run past a corner. Everything is always contested. Everything is always kind of in it within I would say, there's no guy streaking down the sideline, like with, nothing but, the end zone in front of him. So
you can be an explosive offense by not throw the ball 40, 50 yards downfield. Cause I think they're still in like the top 5 or top 7 of 20-yard pass plays, 10-yard run plays. They're just not the type of team that you would turn on. And I'm not even sure what team is most representative of this, where they're going to score on a 40, 50, 60-yard touchdown. If it takes them 7, 8 plays to do it, but you're really efficient, you have the defense on roller skates or on their heels the whole play, you're mixing the run and the pass, you're throwing it vertically, horizontally, you're making the defense defend every blade of grass. That's fine. And I'm sure Brock isn't the type of person where it's like, well, I got to prove my next step. And I don't know if Kyle's coaching it. I got to prove that I can throw it downfield. He's got the gunslinger mentality without the gunslinger arm, which can get a quarterback like him into trouble. And it's unfair to compare him to Drew Brees, other than the fact that they're like small white dudes with mediocre or above average arms at best. But know your lane. Keep cultivating what you're good at. And it's things like the pocket awareness and the breaking the pocket and picking up 20, 30, 40 yards a game on the ground that's going to separate you from other quarterbacks, not trying to play hero ball, trying to put the ball in harm's way too much. He needs his receivers to help him separate, because I think he was ranked as a quarterback in the 60s in terms of target separation for who he's throwing to, which is horrendously bad. It's not his fault. It's the receiver's fault for not separating. But Brock has, and I think I may do this for my next show, we're not going to use the E word, elite. I don't want to use that right now, but I want to think about different categories that we would rate quarterbacks in, accuracy, throwing power, awareness, anticipation, pocket presence, mobility, stuff like that. And see what Brock really does well and things that he needs to work on. But there are some things that he'll just never be. Like, he'll never be a big armed quarterback. That's okay. But he could be a smart, wily, efficient QB that can anticipate in breaking routes and keep the ball moving downfield like that. But the whole pushing it down, if it is Kyle encouraging that, I'm not a coach, that's okay. But last year's offense wasn't this. And last year's offense was, we'll say, pseudo historic in terms of how explosive it was.
Yeah, we were really good last year. I mean, it was just record setting. He had a record setting year. Even Kyle said that there was no way he was going to be able to repeat what he did last year. It was pretty awesome what he accomplished. So before we get into the grading and stuff, do you have any confidence that the Niners make a move at the trade deadline? I'm starting to think that they're not.
So the deadline was that November 5th?
November 5th, election day.
Yeah.
Bum.
I mean, if you want to, if I, rating it on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident am I? I mean, some of these things for a lot of teams get done closer. Any negotiation happens, things pick up when the actual deadline happens. Of course, you have, the Chiefs trading for Hopkins and Josh Uche from the Patriots and the Bills pulling the trigger. I would say right now, maybe like a 6.5. They've done it every year for the past, I don't know if it's every single year that they've been here, but at least going back to 2019, right? So it takes two to tango. I think the more fair thing is to say that I think Lynch is trying. He can't force anybody to trade with him. So I'm probably a 9 or 10 that Lynch is working the phones trying to get somebody, because he's forgotten more football than we'll ever know. If he looks at that front four and says that's adequate with whoever you are rotating in, then he's lying to all of us. So somebody, if it's Arden Key or getting Chase Young back, or a detail, like if they could pry Jeffrey Simmons away from the Titans, well, that's way, way too much money. The DeForest Buckner thing has been thrown out there a lot. And as cool as that would be, I'm like, he's 30, 31 now. He's expensive. You got to go cheap. If you're going to go old, you got to go old and cheap.
If you're going to go old, go get Zadarius Smith.
Yes.
As a rental.
Like a 1 or 2 year rental, work a contract, but help for this year, because I think they're a receiver. They should be running back unless Mason he's got a major shoulder issue and he's out for the year. The O-line's been looking good. I think the secondary's fine. It's the D-line, and it's DN more than anything. And I have more confidence that John is trying than if it's actually going to happen. Because again, you just can't force it to happen.
Yeah,
How do you feel? What do you think?
I don't know. Do internally in the organization, how are they feeling about this particular team? Do they believe that there's a run coming, or has there been internal discussions that kind of know where this thing is going, and maybe they don't pull the trigger this year? It's tough to say. Say they have a slow second half and they don't make the playoffs. I mean, the only positive to come from that is that they could do a little bit more retooling in the draft and all that stuff, because they're going to have a higher pick here and there, maybe get an offensive tackle, this, that, or the other. But I really don't want to think about next year.
I've done some mock drafts, though.
You have done some mock drafts?
In my spare time, I've done some college mock draft simulators just for craps and giggles. And it never turns out the way any of us, those of us who partake in it, but it's a good way to kill 10 minutes.
Tommy Huxley made a good point. He says the run defense is still bad. And based on that comment alone, they should go and get somebody in the interior other than edge. Because I feel like we just, but if it's me personally, I want to go edge. I'm always all about pass rush and getting, because it's really been the Nick Bosa show out there. He hasn't had a lot of help this year. Leonard Floyd has been a massive disappointment. Yetur Gross-Matos is hurt. Number 91, Big O. He's been an amazing surprise. It's amazing that it's the people that you don't expect to be good that are good, and then the ones that you're like, oh, Floyd's going to give us 10 sacks, pressures, yada yada yada, and he comes in and he's done absolutely nothing. Somebody made a good point there, like he's done just enough to keep himself in the starting lineup, but not actually helping getting sacks. And sacks sometimes is a little bit overrated, because Bosa's had a lot of pressures and he's impacted a lot of things. But yeah, edge would probably be. I think they might make a move. The longer Zadarius Smith sits in Cleveland and doesn't move, I think the Niners have a better shot. If that makes any sense, I don't know.
No, I'm with you. And again, like a fourth or fifth round pick, a fifth that could be a fourth. I mean, you absolutely do it. Plus, he's a bigger edge too, right? He's like 6'5", 270, about 25, 30 pounds bigger than Floyd, or heavier than Floyd is. So would help with setting the edge, would help with run defense, could be a player that you move inside. They've moved Sam O inside. I noticed that in the Cowboy game when they went with their NASCAR package. It was Floyd, Sam O inside, Collins, and Bosa. But they are extremely, I'm curious what comes out of the bye. The Cowboys were on pace to run for close to 100 yards at halftime. They had about 46 yards, and the Niners clamped down in the second half, only 10 rushing yards. But also the Niners just kept scoring, got up by 17. Cowboys were going 3 and out, so the running game wasn't really a factor. But I'm curious what they do to help, because when you average it out, right, they've allowed 240 rushing yards the last 2 games. So that's 120 a game. That's not good. They need to be around 100. Tampa can run the ball a little bit. Seattle, not so much. You don't have to worry about, but Green Bay can. Buffalo can. The Bears are trying. The teams that are coming up can all run the football, whether it's with a quarterback or just with a running game. And I've said for a couple of weeks, I would love to see a little bit more. Again, I'm not a D coordinator and I'm not one that breaks down, 22 footage, but I would love to see a little bit more creativity defensively. And it was another game. I know you watched it, and folks that are tuning in to your show or know it also. It's another typical 4-man rush game, right? Like there was no, like when they blitzed someone, they dropped someone out. So they were always only sending 4. I don't know, maybe this is a week where Brandon Staley gets a little bit more involved and says, hey, when the team's running on us, this is how we have to adapt. This is how we have to put more stress on the quarterback, because this is not, and it's never going to change until they maybe bring someone in. This is not a team that's going to generate consistent heat with 4, no matter who the 4 are. So they're going to have to manufacture it other ways.
Bosa needs a rest. They need to get a rotation. They don't have a rotation right now. Bosa's in there all the time.
He by far the most snaps on the D line. Absolutely.
Yeah. Arden Key. Yeah. I see in the comment. Yeah, it would be an okay. Hargrave. It's funny. You have 2 different opinions on Hargrave. I kind of side with Tommy Huxley on this one. I think the Hargrave signing was a bad signing. He got paid and he don't give it. He doesn't. I'm sorry. He played really well in Philly, got paid, and he doesn't give it.
No, Philly made out like bandits because they let him go. He signs for $20+ million, and they drafted Jalen Carter out of Georgia. So they got someone for 20% of the cost that's producing just as much. I think he's going to be gone next year. This is going to be a pivot off season for the 49ers based on who they're going to be able to keep and sign. And are we really saying though that, I know Malik Collins is making about $10 million a year and Jordan Elliott's making maybe 5 or 6. I forget what his contract is, but are we seeing such a big drop off like with these players? Like, is it really that different? Like I go back to Mustafa and Hufanga, as good as Hufanga was, and we have to say past tense because he has wrist issues coming off of an ACL, did have an all-pro year. But are we seeing that much of a drop off with where Mustafa is now compared to Huff's rookie season, which was a wash, but where maybe Huff was the first half of last year, and you're getting Mustafa for about under $1 million a year versus what Huff's going to command?
You have the nine. I didn't even have it as a topic, but the Niners have some decisions to make this offseason. Deommodore Lenoir is a must resign.
Got to. He may price himself out, but they got to try. They got to legitimately try.
They have to figure out a way to keep him. He's one of the best corners in the NFL. It's funny how Bosa said he was an airhead when he first got drafted. Yes. I thought that was the funniest thing. I was like, whoa, wait, what? He said, yeah, he's come a long way. He was something like he first got here, he was an airhead. I was like, I don't think I've ever heard a teammate call another teammate an airhead in a press conference when he was talking positively about that player. But anyways, so Huff is definitely, I think he's gone personally, unless they get him on the cheap and they can get him for depth. If oh my God, why is his name escaping me right now? The corner, Bernardo Green, continues to play the way that he does. Charvarius Ward, unless he's willing to take a pay cut, he's gone. He's got to go. I'm sorry. You got to start making some serious. We might as well get into the grading of the draft class. But this draft class is going to allow, if they continue to play the way that they are, it's going to allow to make decisions that are coming this offseason easy. They're going to be easy. I mean, that's Pooney.
Yeah.
Pooney, awesome. Bernardo Green, awesome. Mustafa, awesome. Who else? Who am I thinking of? Who else is good? Isaac Guerendo, really
better
really
than
good.
Maybe we thought. Yeah.
Tatum Bethune, he's been okay when he's played. He's been okay. Kingston, I wish we would have kept him, but like, it's I'm probably forgetting somebody too. But dude, when you hit like that in the draft, and they haven't hit like that in a long time. And it's funny that Adam Peters' first year not being here is the year that they have this amazing draft, which
Yeah.
a lot of people need to pay attention to that. Because I thought, oh my God, we're losing Adam Peters. It's the end of the world as we know it, right? Like the REM or whoever
Mhm.
sings that song, and that's what I was thinking. We're totally wrong, at least so far.
Well, then
But
Peters was responsible for a couple, the previous past couple drafts where there wasn't a ton to write home about. So and they obviously have better hits later on in the draft and undrafted rookie free agents than they do, early on. But yeah, no, listen, the draft class makes it easier, not easy, just easier to move on from players. Winters and Graham were drafted last year, thinking that maybe they can't afford Greenlaw. Brown and Mustafa were drafted at safety as the Hufanga replacement. Pooney is going to replace, Feliciano, I think, basically said he's going to retire, but he could potentially move over to left guard if Aaron Banks is going to cost too much, which he probably will. They do have to figure out what they need to do at center, but Bernardo Green, and if you want to go last year, Darrell Luter, a fifth rounder who's active for only, I think, 3 games. They were drafted. Hopefully one of them pans out to ease the blow of Ward or Lenoir not signing. So I think, and Berendo, because Mitchell's going to be gone. And actually, Jordan Mason, interestingly enough, I thought he was an exclusive rights free agent. He's not. He's a restricted free agent, which means if they want to keep him, they're going to have to tender him at about $2.5 million, which he's worth it. But do you want to spend that much money on a backup running back? Or if you're going to really believe in Grendo down the stretch, like that's going to be an interesting player because he's like the same as Juwan Jennings. Like you're going to have to give him dough to keep him, and you're going to keep him in a not prominent role. But you mentioned like grades. I'll say it. I'll turn it over to you. Right now, this draft class, I'll give like a solid B+. It's still very early, right? It's still half of the year, but they've gotten contributions from so many of the players. And I want to give, I'll clarify who I'm giving kudos to. I'm giving kudos to the players, not Kyle, because Kyle wouldn't have played half of these players if there weren't injuries in front of them.
we didn't even bring up Pearsall and Cowing either. I totally forgot about
right. Yeah. But, Pooney played because Burford and Feliciano were hurt, but then he ran with it. Bernardo Green actually stepped in for Isaac Yada. Pearsall wouldn't have gotten a shot, or Cowing if there weren't major injuries against the Chiefs. So I don't think they've had the foresight of, wow, these rookies are really good. Let's proactively start them. It's been forced their hand due to injuries. But regardless, when they've come in, they've performed, and that's all you can hope for. They are not liabilities, and that is so easy for young players to be. So kudos to them for being up to the task when their numbers have been called.
100%. Kyle is not responsible for any of this because he won't play anybody. My grade would be around a B+, a B-. My minus would be only that, I haven't seen a ton from Cowing.
Mm-hmm.
His special teams, something to be desired. He doesn't seem like he really wants to be back there, to be honest with you. And Pearsall being, that we haven't seen much from him, that'll be the minus. But I mean, Pooney's been nothing short of amazing. When you're getting kudos from a guy like Trent Williams, you're doing something good.
Yeah.
Garendo, like he's grown on me because I thought, like I said at the beginning, I thought like, oh man, we can't lose Mason. We can't lose Mason. And now I've kind of changed a little bit. I'm like almost excited on every play to see what Garendo's going to do because he gives you that home run aspect to his running game. His running.
Would love to see him run through contact a little bit more though. For a big guy, he gets knocked down pretty easily. Like there's been a couple runs where he would get like bumped or like run into the line and then he just falls over. I'm like, all right, well, maybe contact balance isn't your strong suit, but for someone who has that blend of size and speed, Mason's obviously the more physical runner, obviously, but that's just something I would love to see. Someone that's that big and that fast, stay on your feet a little bit better. And then like when you get hit, try to stay up. Like it's always the first person that brings him down. And for someone that big, that was just maybe surprising, but he's young too. So you can't get on him too much for that.
It's a little bit of a, not an argument, but like a little bit of back and forth between Avatar Singh and David. He says, Avatar says, more about Feliciano and Brendel than the coaching staff. And David's like, I've been watching football since '84. Brendel sucks. Listen, I hate to be a guy who picks sides, but I'm going with David McNiner on this one. Brendel is hot dog water, man. He's just not good.
Like,
I think Feliciano played well last year when he was in there.
mhm.
Um,
Listen, that could be a change. Actually, I'm not even sure if the whole Feliciano practice window, when that gets opened, all that good stuff. Surprisingly enough, Brendel was one of the top 5 highest graded offensive
I
players
know.
by Pro
He's
Football Focus,
right.
right? Like and you didn't hear his name all game, right? So like that's what you want from
Good thing,
offensive
right?
linemen. That's so, and that's more of the anomaly than the consistent thing. If someone like Nick Sakiel was clearly better, I would imagine that they would play him. I don't think there's, Brendel's got the experience. Like if he's the one that's calling the protections at the line for, okay. But yeah, when Feliciano is healthy, and I don't know when that's going to be, I have to check up on his injury status, honestly. Maybe there was a conversation to be had on the O-line with, does he take Brendel's place? Because it's apparent to all of us. It's come up in the chat and conversation. If it's apparent to us, it can't not be apparent to coaches.
I also think sometimes within the NFL, there's more than meets the eye when it comes to why certain guys don't play.
Mhm. Yeah.
It could be veteran status. It could just be a simple fact that the coach trusts one guy over the other, which has been something that Kyle, unfortunately to a fault, has a problem with.
Yep.
Is he like the fact that bringing why did we bring back Trent Taylor other than he's best friends with Kyle, or excuse me, Kittle? Like there was no point. He's an absolutely horrendous kick returner. His days, whatever days he had, which weren't much, his days as a pass catcher are long gone.
Mm-hmm.
So what exactly is he on this team for, other than he's part of the Cabo clique, or this clique of players that all get along? You said something earlier. I know this is off topic and a little, I wouldn't say R-rated, but you asked me what CMC could be doing for cardio. I don't know, man. I watched his Instagram live. I have a pretty good idea what he might be doing for cardio. Just saying. No, I'm just playing.
Was it his or was it Shannon Sharp's Instagram live?
No, that one is actually the boogie was going down, but like she's cute. CMC's wife, she's very pretty.
So. Oh yeah. Yeah, they had a Wizard of Oz theme, right, for Halloween.
He was a freaking tint. Only when you. I like that about CMC because he's so serious about football. But like, if she's like your wife and she says you're gonna dress up like the Tin Man,
absolutely,
you dress up like the Tin Man.
right.
Just
no
saying.
Doubt.
I'm just messing though. I'm just messing. Defensive grade. I'll let you go first. I don't have a lot of positivity to say about this defense.
I don't want to be too harsh. I mean, I'll settle out at a C. I don't want to break apart like, pass defense, run defense, blitzes, or positionally, but they're a 4-4 team. A C is an average grade. I mean, you can maybe say maybe it's a little bit lower than a C because the offense is probably like, around a B plus, and maybe they're canceling out how bad the defense is playing at times. Just because the defense isn't flashy and doing things I want them to do. Because again, who am I at the end of the day? Really nobody. Blitzing more, exerting their will more, playing more 5-man lines, maybe challenging a little bit more the cornerbacks, not letting CeeDee Lamb get open and there's 20 yards of nobody around him on the first touchdown. Maybe you guys don't run into each other on the second CeeDee Lamb touchdown. Jair Brown running into Renardo Green, leaving him wide open. There are certainly things that need to be tightened up. Run defense is hot cold. When they're playing a team that can't run the ball, they perform admirably. When they're playing teams that can show even a modicum of run ability, they struggle. So I think like, and you can mind like if someone was D- or D+, I'm not going to argue with anybody, but I think right now a C with maybe the C-ish grade is behind them, and maybe they elevate into like the B's the second half of the season, but that's being very optimistic.
I'm going C-. Just a pitiful run defense that they've had this year. Especially again, like you said, against teams that can run it. The second half against the Cardinals was just absolutely abysmal. I don't know, like between it's funny. They actually got bigger or they got a little more depth within the defensive tackle, and they're actually worse than they were last year, stopping the run with a guy who's, always hurt and it cost a lot of money in Armstead. Pass rush wise, they're worse. They brought in Leonard Floyd. He's been a huge disappointment. Yetur Gross-Matos is hurt. It's been the Bosa show. I think Chris Kocurek is highly overrated sometimes, I think, but personally. Sometimes, and not always, but sometimes. I think the wide nine itself is needs to be put away and taken out back and shot. I think it's over. It needs to be done with because the wide nine is really good if you got guys that can actually get to the quarterback on a consistent basis. But it's so susceptible to the run because of how wide their sets are. I mean, all you have to do is watch the game when they go into a somewhat of a above the field view on like a third down or something, and everybody's kind of turned in, and there's a tractor trailer size width between both defensive tackles on I don't like it.
Which probably, goes hand in hand with why they have problems with running quarterbacks because you're inviting opening lanes up. And if you don't have two big defensive tackles, they don't have to be run stuffers, but can push the pocket in the quarterback's face to make him step back to where your DNs are rushing, it's not going to work. So to your point, again, no dominant front four, wide nine is not as effective as it's been in years past, but maybe a wide five or a concise 6 in terms of getting at the quarterback could be something else that they could try, but it's never going to be put to pasture as long as that coaching staff is there. They just don't. And it's very hard. How many teams in the league have a dominant front four? That's asking a lot. Like you really got to roll the dice on the draft, free agency, all that good stuff. But it's not what it was. And it definitely leaves the defense open to getting hurt by the run, either running back or quarterback. But go ahead. I apologize for cutting you off.
Jair Brown is also hit or miss. He takes some pretty bad angles, not only in pass coverage, but in tackling. He misses tackles. The C itself, to get to a C, I mean, Renardo Green has been a huge
to get to a C.
He's been awesome. Mustafa's been awesome. Javarius Ward's had a down year, but now after the death of his daughter, and I think she might have, it's horrible. I wonder if he even plays after the bye. I wouldn't hold it against him.
Not at all. Like however much time he needs, like, cause she wasn't, ill, right? Like at least that they've stated.
She had Down syndrome, but I don't really know anything other than that. I mean, people don't really die from Down syndrome. It's a form of
and didn't wake up, which is, I mean, tragic on every.
It sucks, man. Like, but I mean, if just football aside, he's had a down year so far this year. He's had injuries too. Linebacker, as we know, has been kind of the Fred Warner show without Greenlaw. It's been inconsistent. I mean, Warner has to play out of his mind every single game for them to have a really good job, doing a really good job in linebacker. So if he's missing tackles, you're beat. So for that, I'm going to go C- on the defense.
Fair.
Offense. If you want to go first, I'm going to be a little nicer, but maybe not. I don't know. I have my issues with the offense as well, but go ahead.
Right now, I'm going to say a solid B, and it could be elevated to a B+ with McCaffrey and all the players coming back. And if they get back to the 49ers offense of 2022 and 2023 of, this is not the let's exercise and demonstrate how far Brock can throw it to the sidelines, on ends, on deep shots. Like, just get back to, and I know it's a dirty word, just get back to being efficient. But if you're consistently efficient, that also means you're explosive. So I think the offense has been a B. Thank God for Jordan Mason, still the third leading rusher in the NFL, even though he went out early again, another game against the Cowboys. And Guerendo in very, very limited duty has been a nice find. I think Brock has had obviously a down year compared to last year, but last year was a historic year for that offense, or it felt like it. I mean, you had two offensive players in the MVP final 5 voting. Like, how often does that happen?
Yeah.
May happen again this year with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, though. Receivers cobbling it together, right? Cobbling it together. Rusty Ayuk's hurt. Debo bringing in some rookies, seeing what, Chris Conley has left. Hopefully Ronnie Bell never sees the field. And I think the O-line has probably been the position group that might actually has been playing consistent ball.
Yeah.
And not dominant by any means, but I think a step up from last year. Even if Trent has fallen a little bit per PFF grades, he's still a top 3 left tackler, top 3 tackle. McKivitz gets crapped on a ton. I think he's performing maybe a little bit better than people are realizing. Pooney's been an upgrade. Banks has been his average self, and Brendel is so. But I think in some, just because the right guard spot has been solidified now, it's a better offensive line than last year. But I don't think you can say that about any other position group on the offense.
Yeah, I'm pretty much copying everything you're saying. I think Brock has taken a step back. The inconsistencies with the injuries, when Ayuk was actually in there, he was playing poorly. He looked rusty. He looked distracted. Just not himself. Debo in and out of the lineup, hurt. No Christian McCaffrey. Having this cavalcade of running backs that we've gone through so far this year. Kittle to me is a godsend recently.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Kittle is one guy that I've gotten on in the past about maybe like falling off and the Niners need to move on. And like we talked about earlier about 3, 4, 5 players that are really doing it while the rest are kind of been inconsistent. Kittle really proved a lot to me in that game. Just the way he was able to separate in that one catch, went down the left sideline. I was like, man, I need to shut my mouth about Kittle. I feel like he's almost having a little bit of a renaissance this year based on everybody that's been missing. You know what I mean? He's had to take on a bigger role, which is fine. I mean, he's able to do it and he's good enough, but B-. I would go B+ if Brock was playing a little bit better. Brock's been inconsistent, holding on to the ball too long, trying to make big plays, trying to be hero. Got to start going back to what got you there, man, with the underneath stuff and the check down. Stop trying to make the big play. Kyle, you can see it on the sideline. Kyle's been frustrated with him. If you don't see it, you're blind. Yeah. And I'm a pro Brock guy. I've been a pro Brock Purdy guy for a while, but he frustrated me in that Cowboys game a little bit. I was getting pretty mad, especially on that one with the sideline where he almost threw the pick. It's just like, I don't know. You have to, like you say, go with what got you there, but you also remember who you are as a quarterback. All the things that people say about you, some of it's true, and you have to kind of play within that structure of what you are as a person physically.
It's impossible in any sport to not make mental mistakes at times, right? But the mental mistakes have to be minimized as much as possible. That the play that you're talking about with Brock, it's okay to eat the ball. It's okay to throw it away. It's okay to slide. What you can't do is that. And that was similar to what he did. What was it last year against the Bengals, right? Didn't he have a similar play along a sideline where a linebacker picked it? It was like a late throw. It's one of the things, I mean, in the NFL, I know people say like, you can't throw late across the middle. Like you generally can't throw late anywhere. The athletes are just too good everywhere on the field, especially when you had 2 Cowboys right in front of your face.
I don't know what he was doing.
There was, just throwing it out of bounds would have been the right play. And the one position that we haven't talked about, you brought up Kittle. I think Kittle's probably on pace for a better year this year than last year. And the offense, I think, runs really well receiving wise now without Ayuk, without having one of your top 2 receivers running through him. And if it's Mason or Guerendo or McCaffrey, it should be a running back and Kittle that the offense runs through, that they should get the most touches. Then you divvy up the remainder of the touches from there. But tight end's another position where it's probably a dead heat from years past, whether you're throwing out there Kittle, Sauber, and Tonjes, or Kittle, Braden Willis, and Dwelly, or Charlie Werner. Like, they just get zero productivity out of anyone not named George Kittle. And it shouldn't be that frustrating because, I mean, last year they were 12-5 and Kittle's obviously a Pro Bowl receiver, all pro. You want to take him off the field. But if the Chiefs can find ways to use people other than Travis Kelce, then I think, and on other teams too. Other teams can go multiple at tight end. Kyle just can't or just doesn't want to, and it's just such a negative tip of the hand.
Yeah.
When Saubert comes in, you know who's not getting the ball, right? You know. And I just think Kyle is smarter or better than that. Like that would be the ultimate deception. Throwing a ball to Jake Tonjes, right? Or Eric Saw, like doesn't happen.
I don't think Kyle trusts to throw them the ball. To be
You
honest
might want
with
to
you.
throw Saubert the ball because he got called for holding, brought back Debo's touchdown. I mean, I know he's a pretty good blocker, and everyone gets called for holding, but come
on. Let's hold on a second. We talked offense, we talked defense. I told you let's talk coaching staff. Give out some coaching grades. I'm gonna go first.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna go D-.
Oh, you're going overall? You're not gonna go all right, OD? All right, overall. Okay.
Coaching staff, I'm going D-, and the majority of it is gonna be on Nick Sorensen. You bring in a guy that's an in-house guy. You bring in a guy because players don't like playing for people that are not from within the house. Like we've talked about in multiple shows, they ran freaking what's his name? They threw him under the bus after the Super Bowl, rightfully so. Kyle did too. And you bring in a guy that the players want because the players, God forbid, you bring in somebody outside of the organization, and the players got to learn to to adjust and maybe play somewhat of a different style of defense. And they're worse than they've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't seem like he has a feel how to call games when it comes to pressure. I think he is very, very slow at adjusting, if at all adjusting. Sometimes I just think the Niners have been playing some bad teams and they've gotten lucky because anytime we go against a team that is actually a really good head coach and can scheme it up, I think Sorensen is in over his head.
Mm-hmm.
I just think they've been bad overall, and he has to take a lot of the blame. The fact that they have two defensive coordinators, one's in the booth, one's on the field, and they're worse than they were last year, tells you everything you need to know. Why would you bring in another guy if you were so sure about a guy like Nick Sorensen? I don't understand that. I just don't think he's a very good D coordinator. I think Kyle's been up and down with his play calling. I think Kyle is very slow to adjust. I think Kyle bangs his head on the door on the goal line a lot, or like the way he calls games. He's not able to adjust quickly. It's like as soon as you get out of running the script, Kyle has no idea what he's doing. We get down within the 10-yard line, Kyle has no idea what he's doing. Like, I don't understand. You're called this, elite play caller and this awesome head coach, and you get all these accolades, and rightfully so. But like, I mean, this is something that's been going on for years with this team with Kyle Shanahan at quarterback, or at head coach. And then like the one thing about Kyle that always gets to me is when you hear him say like, "Oh, we built the game plan around such and such this week," and then that guy goes out, and there's absolutely no backup plan to pivot off of to go play a different style of offense. And to me, that's where Kyle is always going to be here, and a guy like Andy Reid is going to be way up here.
Mm-hmm.
And it took Andy Reid a long time because he wasn't always that guy, but to be able to pivot, make changes on the fly, have confidence in the guys that you drafted to go out there and perform on the field, instead of putting a guy like Ronnie Bell out there who shouldn't even be on this team. He shouldn't be employed in the NFL. I mean, he's that bad. And, Kyle knows better, right? But yet you have Pearsall come in after being shot and almost killed. And the last two games, I think he's done more in a limited role than Ronnie Bell's done all season playing. So special teams, that's it. You want to know why you get a D-? Because special team is an F.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely the most pathetic unit on this team. Not even close. No excuse. You brought in a guy that was supposedly the answer from Seattle, and they've been worse than ever. It's like this every single year, but this year has been absolutely atrocious. You have to win in 3 phases when you play football. And this team, other than the Dallas game, almost every single game they have a special teams gaffe, and Kyle does nothing about it. They don't seem to want to address it. So with that being said, I'm going D. Would I say D-?
I think you said D-.
Yeah, I'm going D- on the coaching staff this year so far.
I'll be a little bit more generous. I'm going to go C- just because this is a coaching staff that's not playing with a full deck, right? They're just not on both sides of the ball. they're missing their lead. What was the stat that we saw during the Cowboy telecast? Like they're missing more players or snaps or whatever than any other from starters and any other team in the league, which it's a next man up mentality. That's fine. Start with the special teams. Special teams, I can't even give them an F because they've lucked into 2 kickers that, other than Anders Carlson's extra point, they've been perfect. Right.
True.
So they lucked into Matthew Wright. They lucked into Anders Carlson. They played a good special teams game against Dallas. Carlson was perfect on all 6 of his kicks. What infuriated me, though, was, of course, when the Niners get up 27-10, Carlson immediately kicks the ball out of bounds on a kickoff.
That's okay.
Ridiculous.
Right.
Inopportune. There's no good time to kick a ball out of bounds, but you get up 3 scores, and that's the next thing you do is kick the ball out of bounds.
Right. That's the frustrating. When I was watching that game, I'm like, here it goes. Here it goes.
But
it's like clockwork, dude. You could set your watch to it.
Yes, don't get too comfortable on any side of the ball because you don't know where the brain fart's going to happen, right? But Dallas, the best punt return team in the league, limited on kick returns. I mean, look what Dallas was doing with Brandon Aubrey. They knew the Niners can't return kickoffs. Brandon Aubrey got called for a penalty because the ball landed before the 20-yard line. They were trying to keep the ball in play because they know the Niners can't return it. And to the Niners' credit, every time they returned it, they actually got it out past the 30, whether it was a 31, 32, Patrick Taylor,
crazy,
whatever. But then now the flip side, here's what makes me laugh. I noticed during the game that Carlson was basically walking into his kickoffs and he could not reach the end zone. He was maybe 4 yards back, walked into it, kicked off, and it would come down to Turpin at like the 3 or 4 yard line. I'm like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? The last kickoff, when they were up 30-17, I guess, and then the Cowboys obviously scored on that drive, he actually took his normal running start, like we would see in kickoffs for 40 years. The kicker is about 12 yards back, running with his full body weight into the kick, and kicked it off. And guess what? It went 8 yards into the end zone for a touchback. I don't know what the special teams plan was with Anders Carlson for kickoffs, but all his kickoffs were crap. But the last one, when he changed his approach, that's a coaching issue. And someone came out in a roundabout way and asked, are you going to make a coaching change on special teams? He's like, nope. And it wasn't really asked that directly, but he kind of inferred it. Never want to wish someone not losing their jobs. But I'm sure he would bounce back and make more as a special teams coach than you and I are making probably combined. So Brian Schneider would be fine. But so that, gets close to an F. Defensively, Sorensen's playing it safe. In-house, like you said, they run a cover 3, they rush 4, they barely blitz. That's what he's doing. He's doing it to a T. He's not necessarily, he's definitely not an improvement over Steve Wilks at this point.
He's not an innovator.
He's not an innovator. He's not a clear drop off from Wilks, except in the standpoint of fourth quarter points. Niners are worse in the league. Wilks was best in the league throughout an entire season. Maybe that'll balance out the last 8. That crazy stuff, right? And then offense, you could give that a B. So I think a B, just given who Kyle's missing, and you would figure maybe the offense regresses a little bit considering how good they were last year. Last year is a really high bar to hold them to, or any offense that, again, puts 2 players in the final 5 in MVP balloting. So I would say maybe like a C minus on coaching. It's hard for me to go lower than that only because they're missing so many important players, but there's no guarantee with this coaching staff, especially Sorensen, that if they had a fully healthy defense, that they'd be really that much better.
True. I want to go a little bit more positive here, and I want to go to a 49ers midseason MVP. Could be any side of the ball, offense, defense. Just based on how he's played all season up until this point, who would be your 49ers midseason MVP?
I'll give you 2. The clear number 1 is Warner. He single-handedly helped them. Was it the Cardinal game that they wound up losing? But he's had big plays, big moments, stopping the run, pass defense, fumble recoveries, interceptions. He's in the discussion for defensive player of the year. He may not get there because of, it's a sack-driven type of award generally, but I think it's him and you have to give Jordan Mason's body is wearing down, but if I had to pick one on the D, one on the offense, how they didn't miss a beat in terms of at least rushing yards. He wasn't providing even half of what McCaffrey provides from a passing standpoint, a receiving standpoint, but he got the jugs machine in the offseason. It's helped out with his 3 receptions or 4 receptions that he has on the season, but pass protection's improved and he runs like his hair is on fire. He finds the crease, he explodes through it. He tries to run through tackles. The body, I don't want to say the body's wearing down. He did have that awkward fall on the shoulder. And if you don't give it enough time to heal with how physically he runs, he's going to re-aggravate it. And he did. But Kittle's been great too, especially recently. But for me, Warner's a clear number 1. There's a drop off, but then number 2, if you want to go O&D, is Mason for me.
Yeah, I'm going to go Fred Warner also, especially early on in the year with the punch outs and the forced fumbles. I don't think people realize how much worse this defense would be if we didn't have Fred Warner been a linebacker. And I'm super critical on guys, but he is one of the few people that on this team this year, based on how last year ended, who looks like he hasn't missed a beat or has gotten better. Losing again in the Super Bowl, again to the Chiefs, in February. And then already, he's been amazing.
Yep.
I'm always tough on him and Bosa and stuff. And I think Bosa's had a really good first half also, based on the fact that he's not getting any help on the defensive line. And it's a sack driven game, like you said. So that's always going to be kind of the determining factor with defensive line players. But Fred Warner's been every game he's on, every single game. He never takes a game off. He doesn't take himself out of games like Debo for who knows what.
Or Anthony Richardson.
Or Anthony Richardson. I mean, he's been nothing short of, like you said, maybe defensive player of the year, but he probably won't get it, like you said, because it's usually like a defensive lineman, sack guy. Somebody gets 20 sacks, he's going to get the MVP, defensive MVP. Offensively, shoot, Dominic Pooney.
There you go.
Dominic Pooney, to me, offensively, he's a rookie. He had an opportunity in training camp. He came in and he freaking snatched that opportunity away. Burford, Feliciano, injured, comes in, and for all the misses that we've had, offensive line ways, I don't think we've been a really good offensive line drafting team. Pooney's been nothing short of an all-pro. And if this is the beginning of his career, his first season, I could only think that the sky's the limit. I think he's going to be a perennial all-pro. If there was an all Madden team still, if John Madden was still alive, there's a good chance as a rookie, Dominic Pooney would make that team. I mean, he's just, we're trying to find that Chris Jones killer, the guy that can stop him from wrecking our Super Bowls. And he had some struggles in the Kansas City game, but man, he's been nothing short of amazing. So yeah, I'm going to go with two-way. I'm going to go two-way. Instead of going one, I'm going to go Fred Warner, Dominic Pooney are my two guys. And
Pooney hasn't allowed a sack or a pressure
that's amazing
all year. And hopefully like the minus Adam Peters effect, because you mentioned like haven't had good luck drafting linemen. I mean, it's McGlinchey, it's McKivitz, it's Banks, it's Burford, it's Zakiel. Jarrett Kingston can't stick around. You would figure they would probably keep two rookie O linemen because they need help. And let's see what he's doing. I'm not even sure if he's starting in Carolina or not. But hopefully maybe they've identified something in, I hate to say like they got lucky with him, but hopefully they identified something in him and the type of player that he is, that with this upcoming draft, knowing that they now might have to fill a hole at left guard with Aaron Banks, that they can find and be successful. And maybe at tackle again, if they need a swing tackle, since Jalen Moore is a free agent, that they can have maybe a bit keener of an eye in terms of young offensive line talent. But Pooney has been a godsend because with Feliciano hurt, it would have been Burford again. And you could maybe imagine he would maybe have acquitted himself better the first 8 games than he did in the Super Bowl, because people are always going to remember that. It was a bad miss, obviously. But if he could be a cornerstone lineman for the next 6, 7, 8 years for San Francisco, then you just got to worry about the other 4 spots moving forward.
I saw this comment and I thought it might have been in the preseason, early in the season, where McKivitz missed a pass rusher and Pooney went off of his man, turned around, did like a 180 and caught the guy off the edge too. And I was just like, what?
Mm-hmm.
That's like that's like a Madden glitch, right? That's not supposed to happen. That's not supposed to happen. I want to touch back on our coaching staff real quick. I totally forgot, and maybe I'll bump it up into a C-. Bobby Turner.
Yeah.
Nothing short of the best. He is a running back whisperer, man. I hope he coaches until he's 100, man, because every year, bro, every year we find people because of him. Ever since we've had Kyle and John in this building and Bobby Turner has been the running backs coach, it's just amazing, bro. I mean, like Raheem Mostert, Matt Breida, I'm trying to think. Whoever we have on the team this year, my brain is escaping me.
Oh, Mason.
McCaffrey,
Guarendo's looking
Guarendo. Good. Yeah. McCaffrey, I mean, McCaffrey's like a cheat code, so I can't really give that one to Bobby Turner. But man, unbelievable. Unbelievable. He was talking to somebody during the game the other day, and they were like listening to him like they were talking to Jesus Christ, man. Their eyes were just like, whoosh. And I'm like, yeah, you better listen to him because he knows what he's talking about.
He apparently gave a lot of tough love to Jordan Mason Eli Mitchell being another one too, obviously, but he gave a lot of tough love to Jordan Mason in the offseason. And it's interesting how you would need to give, and everybody's wired differently, right? Like, especially these high-end athletes, but someone coming in as an undrafted rookie free agent, you would figure they're going to have a chip on their shoulder. They're going to be a sponge and listen hard, active listening to anything that anybody is saying. But going into year 3, it's clicked for Mason, and in no small part due to what, Bobby Turner has instilled in him and helped him to become more of a complete running back, certainly, than what he was last year. And he's going to be hopefully working that magic on Guarendo too. And I'm sure, listen, the way the Niners are going, they're going to probably draft another running back in the 2025 draft. It's probably going to be way too early for any of our liking.
And they're probably going to get an undrafted guy as well.
And it should be, I mean, they'll definitely bring in someone undrafted, but yeah, maybe save those 3rd or 4th round picks for another DN, the swing tackle, a corner, something that just not another kicker or punter. Something that's going to contribute, more often. But yeah, Bobby Turner and the Shanahans attached at the hip, and it's no surprise why the running game has always been as good as it's been.
I think Leon's talking about the draft. Kansas coaches the O-line up well. Dip into that again next year and get the center Bryce Foster. Fits the scheme, calls protections. He's really good. Would you be okay with the Niners if they double dipped in the beginning of the draft next year and maybe went 1st round and 2nd round, got a tackle and a guard center? Would you have a problem with that?
Listen, I wouldn't have. I mean, that the last time they did that, right, was, what was it under Harbaugh when they went Mike Iupati and the kid from Rutgers at tackle. I'm curious how Shanahan would feel about a rookie center. I mean, you could draft a rookie center, right? It's fine, but someone that would be a starter from day one, whereas Kyle was very active bringing Alex Mack in from, I guess it was the Falcons at the time or Browns, wherever he was. And that's, one of the advantages of having a veteran like Brendel is at least he's been through the wars a little bit more, someone who's seen more snaps at the pro level. And then, we have all, folks that were super high on Michigan center Drake Nugent, who's on the practice squad. I don't think he has a prayer in really, I shouldn't say that. I highly doubt that he's the center of the future for this team, given how small he is by NFL standards. If they were going to double dip on the line the first 2 rounds, I would be more okay with a D tackle or DN in the first. And then if they wanted to go a tackle in the second, that could maybe play guard year 1 and year 2 move out to either left tackle or right tackle, depending on what happens with Williams and McKivitz. I think their whole philosophy, because they basically came out and said it, don't spend high picks on O-linemen, spend it on skill position players, and we'll figure it out. So It feels like they've taken that to heart outside of Mike McGlinchey. So, but a second round lineman, I'd totally be okay with.
Man, I think McGlinchey scared the hell out of them with all that. So,
scared the hell out of all of us.
real quick, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I know the Niners have the next 4 games. I think it's Tampa, Seattle,
at Packers. I actually have it up, Aaron.
At Packers, at Buffalo.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like coming out of the bye, I mean, they need to go on a run if they want to make the playoffs. And I think Tampa's a winnable game.
Oh yeah.
I think Seattle is very winnable.
Yep.
I think Green Bay, if Aaron or Jordan Love isn't playing, is winnable. It's the Buffalo game to me that is one that's scary because Josh Allen he's amazing. I mean, say what you want about him in the playoffs. You could say the same thing about Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is a regular season freaking just unbelievable. And then he gets into the playoffs and he's kind of like Allen. He just, for some reason, they can't, it's like Marino. They get into the playoffs and it's like they become, I don't know. They overthink. They panic. I don't know what exactly you call it, but yeah, the Buffalo game is the one that scares me. But shoot, they need to start beating good teams though, Al. They can't sit there and beat on these also rans and then feel good about going into the playoffs and facing a team like the Minnesota Vikings or the Detroit Lions if they can't beat a team like Buffalo. If they could go into Buffalo and sneak out a win over there, that would change my perspective on this team 100%.
Well, right now, because I have it up in front of me, there's 9 games remaining. Out of the 9 games, only 2 teams have a losing record. The Rams are 3-4, and the Dolphins, or whatever the hell they are, 2-5. Tampa's without their top 2 wide receivers. They seem to own Geno Smith and the Seahawks. If the Niners can get, they absolutely have to win their last 3 NFC West games, right? Like they just absolutely have to get to 4-2 in terms of tiebreakers, NFC games, etc. If they can win the next 2 games, they're NFC games at Tampa, at home for Seattle. Now they're on a 3-game win streak. Then they would be 6-4. And the national conversation changes from what's wrong with the Niners to, oh, here come the Niners again. Here come the Niners, second half team. Yep. Green Bay, at Buffalo. I think they have to split there. I could see them losing both because those are good teams, difficult places to play. I could see them losing both.
You got to get one of them at least.
You have to get one of them. And if you want one of them, you want the NFC one, right? Like you want Green Bay versus Buffalo. Then they're at home for the Bears and Rams. Those are 2 very winnable games. Who knows how much the Rams are going to be charging forward. It looks like they're going to keep Cooper Kupp and everybody. At Miami is a scary game, even though they're 2-5.
Yeah.
Assuming 2 is healthy, that's what, 5 or 6 more games for him to get back into game shape, the concussions and something. It's still Tua and Mostert and HN and Waddle and everybody that they have. That could be a scary game.
Yep.
Detroit on Monday night. And then the last game is at Arizona, which, they're not going to get, the Niners aren't going to get a bye if they make the playoffs, but they're also probably not going to have the luxury of throwing the last game of the season like they did last year against the Rams, because they're going to need an NFC and an NFC West game against Carolina. I think I said with you probably a couple of weeks ago, their ceiling is 10-7. It doesn't mean that they're going to get there, but this team's ceiling is 10-7. And if you want me to hedge and say, well, maybe 9-8 is safer, that they go 5-4 and they have 4 losses here, because they'll beat some of the teams they should beat. They'll beat a team that you look at and go, oh, maybe not. And they'll lose to a team where you look at and go, oh, the Niners should definitely beat them. So going 5-4 to me maybe feels a little bit better than 6-3 coming out of the bye. But that's also, we're basing it on the knowledge we have. And that knowledge is no McCaffrey, no Greenlaw, limited Jennings, limited Yetur Gross-Matos. And they keep saying, oh, Hargrave may come back for the playoffs. I don't care about that. Let's get there first.
Right.
And I don't even think, if the defense is playing well, I'd sit his ass. Like, I don't think
he's not that good. He's actually a detriment. He's a negative.
He's not an answer the way McCaffrey and Greenlaw are answers for this team, and Jennings.
Those are difference makers, straight up. So
agreed. What do you think record wise?
10-7.
Okay, I'll take. Listen, I'll take that over 9-8. From your lips to God's ears, I'll take it.
All right, man. We went almost an hour and a half. I don't know if I'm doing any streaming this next week, but if I do, you might be the only one that I actually go streaming with because it's closest to the game.
Oh,
I
okay,
might
yeah.
take a breather next week, and then only maybe me and you go on like a preview for the Bucks game. We could just talk about probably rehash some of the stuff we talked about, and then
Yeah.
get ready for the second half of the season. But it's been a busy week for me streaming, and it's kind of nice. I don't know about you, but I like taking Sundays off where the Niners aren't playing and just relaxing, watching football, and hoping your division rivals lose. That's kind of my jive. I like that sometimes.
I'm listen, a stress-free anything, Thursday, Friday, Monday of football is nice. I found myself that this year really not watching other than like a Monday night game, Sunday night game, but I don't want to watch the Jets or Giants. Like red zone is fine. Like I just generally don't watch football Sunday during the day, other than when it's the Niner game. So this Sunday I might take a nap. I might listen to my audiobook. Maybe I'll start watching The Penguin on HBO Max. Like there's definitely some other stuff that I want to do. But yeah, listen, Rams Seahawks, like I said, I mean, they could tie. One of them's got to lose. And I'll be rooting for the Bears at Arizona because for obvious reasons. So yeah, some definite rooting interest going on. And listen, and if the Bucks, if Baker Mayfield turns an ankle and is out for 2 weeks, I'm not going to cry about that either.
No, you got to take what you can get at this
Take what you can
point.
get, man.
Yeah. All right, everybody, we're going to get out of here. Thanks for all the participation. Thanks for sticking around for an hour and a half. This is always usually our longest one of the week. And hopefully, if I do come back next week, I probably might just be on just with Al. I don't know if I'm going to do the rest of the streams next week. We'll see, though. Maybe I'll change my mind. But everybody have a great rest of your evening, and we will see you on the other side. Peace.
Have a good night, all. Take care.